went and checked it out, and then saw that there was a guy in there, and the water was steadily rising. And so I ran back to my house, grabbed a hammer, ran back, and just went in there and got him.
That is incredible video of the moment a New Orleans ER nurse jumps into action to save a man stuck in a sinking truck during a flash flood emergency in the middle of Hurricane Francine. All of that unfolding on live TV. This is just one of dozens of rescues all across Louisiana last night. I'm Gadi Schwartz, and this is Stay Tuned Now. And tonight, Louisiana is in recovery mode after taking a direct hit from Hurricane Francine just 24 hours ago. You saw some of the worst conditions live on our air last night unfolding before us. It has since weakened to a post-tropical storm, but not without leaving this massive path of destruction. Flooded roads, toppled trees, roofs ripped off from the force of 100-mile-per-hour winds. Just look at this community, completely underwater here. Waist-deep water led to dozens of rescues as people's homes became flooded. And in the city of Kenner alone, about 100 homes took on water, according to officials there. Our NBC affiliate in New Orleans spoke to one woman who had just finished renovating her home after 2021's Hurricane Ida.
It's very, very upsetting because everything out there is brand new because of Ida. Ida blew off our patio cover and half of our roof. So we had to get a new roof, and we just got a new fence. You can tell the fence is, and now the fence is halfway down, and it's like, wow, okay, here we go again.
Meanwhile, tens of thousands are still without power tonight. A lot of those outages caused by fallen debris, like this tree branch right there that caught fire and exploded on a power line in one neighborhood. Now, as the storm moves north, it is knocking out power to thousands across the southeast, and about 11 million people from eastern Arkansas to northern Florida are under flood watches at this moment. We've got team coverage tonight. NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns will have the forecast. But first, let's go to NBC News correspondent Kathy Park in Houma, Louisiana. And Kathy, can you talk to us about some of the damage you've been seeing on the ground?
So, Gadi, we ended up in Houma, Louisiana, probably one of the hardest hit communities. And we've been driving around, obviously, a lot of debris on the ground. And today was really a day of recovery. I want to show you exactly where we're standing right now. We're actually at a local business. This is a thrift shop, a popular thrift shop that a lot of people turn to in this community. And we are told that at the height of the storm, the owner, there were 8 sensors on the roof, and it all went off at the same time, and he knew something was wrong. So he wasn't here. Fortunately, no injuries to report. But this is kind of the scope of the damage. I mean, this over here, the entire roof flew over and flew open. It's almost like a tin can. And then over to my left, over far to the right, you kind of see the light over there. There was a brick wall, believe it or not, and it collapsed during the storm as well. But crews moved in. They mobilized really quickly, actually. Things have kind of quieted down a bit, but they put up this makeshift wall, and they plan on making repairs pretty much throughout the coming days. But this is kind of something that we're seeing in this community. But once again, the good news is no injuries. And earlier today, we had a chance to speak with the business owner here about this storm. Take a listen. Are you surprised that the storm did so much damage to your property?
I really am, because the last major hurricane that came through here was probably 150-mile-an-hour winds, and this roof did not come off. We've had so many storms, so it's kind of a way of life in a way. You know, you just accept it.
And
sometimes you're lucky, sometimes you're not. It's unpredictable. That's right. Mother Nature's unpredictable.
And Gadi, that storm he was referring to was Hurricane Ida in 2021, and this community and several communities across Louisiana, they're scarred from that event. It was devastating. It was a Category 4. But going back to that unpredictability, you heard that business owner talking about 100-plus mile-per-hour wind gusts. Here, it was closer to 70, 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts. And just take a look at the damage. It was all kind of the angle at which the wind came in this direction and caused all this damage. So a lot of assessing as far as just kind of what to do next. But it seems like, you know, folks are kind of coming together, pulling together to get this business back up and running once again.
Yeah, what a reminder of the power of Mother Nature there. Do we know how the progress is going on restoring power?
So, Gadi, that is still the big headline across southern Louisiana. Hundreds of thousands of customers still without power tonight. And according to the utilities, they prepared in advance. They were gearing up for this. They have crews working around the clock. Right now, they don't have an official timeline, but it appears it will likely take days for everyone to have their power back on. But just driving around this community, a lot of people have generators. Here in Louisiana, they know the drill when it comes to storm preparation, hurricanes. People not only have just one generator, some gentleman, one man actually told me that he had 3 generators on hand. So obviously folks here are prepared, or were prepared going into this storm, and they're prepared to kind of ride it out depending on how long it takes for the power to come back online. But I can tell you it's hot here, and it's still going to stay hot pretty much the rest of the week, so a lot that they'll have to endure for the coming days. Gadi?
Yeah, sounds like a very resilient community there. Kathy Park, thank you. And for more on where the remnants of Francine are headed now, let's check in with NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns. Hey there, Bill.
Gadi, the storm is much, much weaker. The wind is not doing any more problems, but it doesn't mean we're completely out of the water, because we still have a chance of getting some heavy rain, flash flooding, and maybe even an isolated tornado or two as we go throughout the evening. So the storm itself is no longer what we'd call a tropical system. Now it's just kind of like a regular old storm, but it doesn't mean it's not pouring. I mean, it's been pouring all day in the Memphis area, and they're starting to have some water issues there. Some heavier bands of rain are now shifting up there into southern portions of Kentucky near Paducah. This gets your attention here. The bright red, these are new thunderstorms, almost like on a cold front, and this is kicking through central Alabama. And this little pink line in here is a new tornado watch that's been issued, and this will stay up till about 10 p.m. this evening. Conditions are at least favorable for isolated tornadoes in this, and it would be along this line here, and there's actually a second line forming behind it. There's no active tornado warnings. I haven't heard any reports of tornadoes, but for our friends from Birmingham to Montgomery, I know you're going to be watching a close eye on this as this line goes through in case anything does begin to spin up. The other threat, of course, will be heavy rainfall. With those thunderstorms, we could, in addition to the isolated tornadoes, see a chance of some isolated flash flooding here in Alabama, too. Near the actual center of what's left of the storm over Memphis could produce some isolated flash flooding, and all the way even down to Panama City tonight, some isolated thunderstorms may come through. That threat has been minimal. We haven't seen a lot of flash flooding today, so that's good news. Our computers are telling us additional rainfall, heaviest amount, 2 to 3 inches near Birmingham. That's with those thunderstorms I just showed you. Near the Memphis area, some northeast portions of Arkansas, the boot there of Missouri, anywhere between 1 to 2 inches. In addition, I know a lot of areas have already had right around 2 to 3 inches of rain. So here's how it's all going to play out as we go throughout the day tomorrow. It's just going to sit here and kind of drift. There'll be areas of showers and thunderstorms. Most areas will get a good deal of sunshine. We're not going to see like damaging storms, but just hit and miss storms for anyone traveling through the region. And this thing's going to linger all the way into Saturday here throughout the southeast. So don't expect, beautiful blue skies. You'll have occasional showers and definitely thunderstorms. And of course, this is that time of year when everyone's wondering what's next. We're at the peak of the hurricane season. You do expect activity out there. We have a couple areas of interest. One is already a tropical depression, but that's going to move very slowly. So we're not going to worry about or focus on that. Odds are it turns out into the open Atlantic anyways. If anyone's got plans for Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, a weak system's heading your way. And then this little area off the southeast coast. It doesn't look like anything strong is going to develop, but it's not going to be a good late summer beach weekend. The waves are going to be rough, rip currents up and down the southeast coast, and there'll be occasional rain at the beaches, too. So just something to keep an eye on, nothing that's going to cause you too many problems. And for all our friends out west, it's going to stay dry, but you got a cooling trend coming, and that's really going to help these firefighting efforts. So as we head through Saturday, some areas on the coast in the 60s, and 70s in the Pacific Northwest, and even in the Sunday. So, Gadi, I know anyone out there on the front lines of all these big fires, it's about time they got a break with the weather, and that's happening now.
It sure is. Bill Cairns, thank you. And as you just heard, some relief in the forecast and a welcome change for crews battling those fires out here in Southern California. At least 3 major wildfires are burning right now within 100 miles of Los Angeles. The biggest of them, the Bridge Fire, has burned more than 50,000 acres with 0% containment. More than a dozen homes were destroyed in the town of Wrightwood, California. And that was just one of the communities ordered to evacuate when the fire blew up earlier this week. Tonight, there are neighborhoods and neighbors that are still under mandatory evacuations. Morgan Chesky joins us now from Wrightwood. Morgan, how's it looking out there right now?
Yeah, Gadi, you mentioned those evacuated neighborhoods. We are standing in the middle of one of them, and for very good reason, because just over my shoulder, if we can push in, you will get a glimpse at some of the devastation that has stricken this tight-knit mountain community over the last 48 hours. That's all that's left of a large home here. You can see neighboring homes. They are still standing tonight, Gadi. Everyone able to get out safely, but unfortunately, they were not able to take everything with them. This just some of the damage we're seeing in and around this bridge fire damage zone. As you mentioned, more than 50,000 acres, the largest in the state, one of 3 major fires. Cause is still unknown, but Gadi, I have to tell you, this is it's tough to see. You smell the smoke from miles away, but to get here and to witness the damage firsthand, you just get an idea at how quickly these flames tore through here overnight, I should add, forcing the evacuations. And the fact that it's 0% contained right now, incredibly concerning.
Yeah, I'm glad you showed those other houses there. I mean, it's so unpredictable how these fires behave, and also almost random which houses go up. Officials there are saying that this could have been a lot worse. Based on what you've seen, is that true?
Well, I would add that while fires can absolutely shift with the wind, what saved these homes was the tireless work of fire crews who were able to cut line and provide some sort of barrier between the worst of the flames and these homes behind me. As far as if it could have been worse, well, it could be, and I'll tell you why, Gadi. We have temperatures about 30 to 40 degrees cooler today than we had over the weekend earlier this week when this bridge fire really exploded. The high heat also contributed to the growth of the line fire, as well as the fire currently burning in Orange County, the airport fire. Crews are hoping that these cooler temps will help them at least stay more fresh on the fire line, but we do know that there's no rain coming, so still incredibly dry conditions and unfortunately plenty of fuel left to burn here. Gadi?
And Morgan, speaking of the line fire, I mean, there is so much anger and outrage over what's happened in that case. An arrest has been made. A man has appeared in court today. Several firefighters were hurt in that fire. What kind of charges is a suspect in the starting of that fire facing right now, and what more do we know about that investigation?
Yeah, Gadi, 9 arson-related charges coming against that 34-year-old man who was actually taken into custody back on Tuesday because investigators say they were able to use eyewitness accounts to trace his vehicle and used license plate readers to track down his location. That is how they put him initially in custody. No word on his motive, but as for those 9 arson-related charges, we know that one of them, at least one of them, is related to bodily injury to a firefighter, and that he's charged with starting 3 separate fires as well. So that is just some of what we learned there. But as you can imagine, yeah, only adding insult to injury to know all of that damage for the line fire was intentional. Gadi?
Yeah, so senseless. Morgan Chesky down there on the fire lines. Morgan, thank you. Also in Southern California, a lot of us woke up to pretty strong rocking and rolling. Millions of people up and down the coast within shaking distance of a quake that struck north of Malibu this morning. And according to the USGS, people could feel that tremor throughout the greater Los Angeles area and as far south as San Diego. Now, it was a 4.7 magnitude quake, and that's considered moderate on the Richter scale. The city of Malibu says there was no major damage reported. And so far this year, we have seen a lot more of these moderate earthquakes than usual, breaking a 65-year record for the number of quakes measuring at a magnitude 4 or higher. And there have been several similar earthquakes like the one felt today just in the last few months. And Liz Kreutz joins us now with more on this. Liz, the big question is all this shaking a forewarning of the big one? What are earthquake experts saying after all these moderate quakes that we've been seeing?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really active year, Gadi. We felt the one this morning here in L.A., and the answer to your question is that we really don't know. Geologists are split on this. There are some who do believe that an increase in seismic activity can mean that the big one is potentially coming, but then there are some who actually believe that seismic activity goes down before a big quake. So we don't really know, but we do know that it's been a very active year for these moderate quakes here. This is the second quake to hit Los Angeles in just the past month. We felt the one here this morning in Los Angeles. And then just a month ago, there was the one east of Pasadena that we felt here in our bureau as well. And prior to that, there was one a little bit north of here in Bakersfield. And so we're feeling these quakes. It's just a reminder we're in earthquake country, Gadi. And, we'll see if a big one comes. It's been 30 years, Gadi, since a really massive, destructive one, a 6.7 quake in 1994, the Northridge earthquake. 30 years since a quake that big.
And speaking of warnings, I mean, that alert that went out to all of our phones, I'm sure you got one. It's pretty intense. It minced no words. It was very much like earthquake happening, take cover. I mean, it wasn't like a super horrible earthquake where I was, at least. And earthquakes, they happen a lot. So should we expect earthquake alerts like this for every quake, or is there a threshold so we kind of weed out the small ones?
Yeah, so there is a threshold, Gadi. The quake alert system, the shake alert system, goes off for a 4.5 magnitude quake or higher. And this one was originally a 5.1. It was downgraded to a 4.7, so it just met that threshold there. But there has been a big upgrade to this shake alert system. In fact, particularly with Android phones. Earlier this month, Android announced that they were going to put their shake alert into all of their Androids countrywide. Prior to this, it was just for California, Oregon, and Washington that would get alerts for those quakes. Now, if you have an Android across the country, you will get an alert for a quake if it's in your area, of course. Apple does not have that built-in system. This is with a contract they have with USGS. They have not come to an agreement with them, so you have to actually go and download the MyShake app. But I got that alert too, Gadi. It was very loud, and I don't know about you, but for me, it actually came right when the shaking ended. So some people it comes before. For me, it came right when it ended.
Mine came right when my wife was like, earthquake. And I'm like, oh, look, that's exactly what my phone just said. We were just trying to keep our daughter calm. And I was like, earthquakes can be nice. This one's a nice one. And so just trying to teach her to remain cool under this earthquake pressure. But it is just such a good reminder that, like, we live on all kinds of fault lines here, including the San Andreas, obviously. So can you remind us what needs to be in our earthquake kits again?
Yeah, so much we can be prepared for. Of course, having that go bag, right? Water, protein bars, snacks, batteries, flashlights that work, because often during a big quake, the power can go out. Really, as maybe you would tell your daughter, that's why we earthquake-proof our homes, nothing big hanging over your bed. This one is a quake that woke a lot of people up. And so you want to not have anything hanging over your bed that could fall on you. And then, of course, just what everybody always says, if you feel that quake, stop, drop, and take cover. Gadi.
Liz Kreutz with some, hopefully we don't need it, but some potentially life-saving advice there. Liz, thank you. Don't go anywhere. We are just getting started. Up next, dueling rallies on the campaign trail. Former President Trump was in the battleground of Arizona tonight, while Vice President Kamala Harris paid a visit to North Carolina. We'll get the latest on the race for the White House in just a moment. Plus, new charges against Harvey Weinstein. NBC's Angela Sinandella will be here to break down the latest indictment and how this is going to play into a retrial in New York City. And social media suicide prevention. Meta, Snapchat, and TikTok are teaming up to flag dangerous content on the platforms. Maya Eagling will be here with more on tonight's Future of Everything, so stay tuned. Hey, welcome back. And here are some of the other headlines we're watching tonight. At least 14 people were hurt, including a dozen students in this pretty scary school bus crash in northern Minnesota. Now, a car T-boned that bus, causing a rollover. 10 kids were sent to the hospital. The car's driver had to be rescued and is also being treated for injuries. And a shakeup for the New York City Police Department. The police commissioner resigning today after being linked to a federal investigation. Just last week, the FBI raided his home, taking his cell phone, and sources familiar tell NBC News that the feds are looking into the department's nightclub enforcement. And hundreds of Boston hotel workers are out on picket lines again today, protesting what they call difficult workloads and low wages. A lot of them say they can't even afford the cost of living in a city. This follows up a walkout earlier this month, and that strike is expected to last 3 days. And North Dakota's near-total abortion ban is no more. A judge there striking it down today, basically saying it violated the state's constitution. The undoing of the ban will take effect over the next few months, or next few weeks, rather, but North Dakota doesn't currently have any freestanding abortion clinics. The Republican AG there says he will appeal. And the FDA is approving Apple's AirPod Pro headphones as hearing aids. Now, that marks the first over-the-counter hearing aid software. The feature was announced just a few days ago with the second-generation Apple AirPods Pros, and the software was studied among people with mild to moderate hearing loss, basically finding it worked a similar way as similar devices. And we are less than 2 months away from Election Day, and if you ask former President Trump, we will not be getting any more presidential debates. At least that's what he is saying right now. The former president taking to Truth Social today, saying he will not be participating in any more debates because he says he won the one on Tuesday. At a rally in Tucson, Arizona today, he repeated that stance.
Polls clearly show that I won the debate against Comrade Kamala Harris. So because we've done 2 debates and because they were successful, there will be no third debate.
Now let's bring in NBC's 2024 campaign embed, Alex Tabbitt. He's in Arizona tonight. Alex, good to see you. The former president, he seems to be shutting down that idea of a possible third presidential debate. But, like, is there any chance that we may see another one anyway?
Well, Gadi, it's important to note that typically candidates want to debate when they want to change a dynamic of the race. A lot of the polls that we've been seeing in these battlegrounds have shown former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris neck and neck. But if that dynamic were to change, if hypothetically Harris started to build a lead, you could see former President Donald Trump reconsider the prospect of another debate as a means of shifting that dynamic. Now, for the political junkies who are worried that there won't be any more debates, circle October 1st on your calendar. That's when you'll see Vice President Harris's running mate Tim Walz and former President Donald Trump's running mate J.D. Vance square off October 1st. Gadi?
Never say never. So what are you hearing from voters out there about this last debate performance? Do they think that former President Trump won there?
Well, really, I've been talking to voters all day, along with our colleague Vaughn Hilliard, and it's been a mixed reaction. Some of Trump's supporters, all of whom are very dedicated, by the way, waiting for hours in this 100-degree weather to see him at a rally. Some of them supporting the former president, agreeing with the former president that he won, and some of them a little bit more skeptical. I wanted you to hear a conversation that our colleague Vaughn Hilliard had with one of Trump's supporters just a few hours ago.
What did you think about Donald Trump's performance?
It wasn't my favorite of his performances. I'm a huge Donald Trump supporter, clearly going to vote for him. I think he referred back to the border a bit too much instead of moving forward with some of the questions. Again, we want the border to be in southern Arizona. We care about the border. But I think that looked bad on him. And, of course, the dog, eating the dogs up north looked bad on him. But other than that, I thought he did okay.
And you heard it there, Gadi. Some of Trump's comments on Tuesday night sticking with voters, not necessarily for the right reasons.
Yeah, and she brought up the whole pet-eating comments there. That has been making waves. Is the former president backing down on those claims or doubling down on those claims? What have we heard today?
The former president is not backing down on those claims. Just about an hour ago, he repeated them on stage at this rally in Tucson, and he was asked about them during an interview earlier in the day on Telemundo. I want you to watch a clip from that interview.
Well, that's come from stories. It's come from television. And some of the pets, I don't know, cats, dogs, or both, but some of the pets were taken by the migrants. And it's a shame. It's sad.
And of course, Gadi, it's important to state that this claim that former President Donald Trump is repeating over and over and over again has not been substantiated. We see no evidence that Haitian migrants in Ohio are eating people's pets. Gadi?
Alex Tabbitt out there in Tucson for us. Alex, thanks so much for joining us tonight, bro. Now let's stay with those unsubstantiated pet-eating comments for a minute here. The Ohio city, Springfield, at the center of all of this, is facing the fallout from former president's comments. Now, the city was forced to close its city hall today after receiving a bomb threat which prompted evacuations, and it's not clear right now who made the threat, but the city's mayor says it included complaints about Haitian migrants in the city. NBC's Yamiche Alcindor is in Springfield, and she has got more on how people out there are responding. Yamiche?
Well, the tension here in Springfield, Ohio is palpable. People are definitely worried that these baseless claims about Haitian immigrants abusing pets are really going to impact life here. Haitian immigrants are very worried. Some of them are telling me that they're scared to walk the streets because they're worried that they might be targeted and that people might actually be violent with them. So it's very heartbreaking to hear their stories because they fled insecurity in Haiti, and now they say that they're feeling insecurity here in Springfield. Meanwhile, there are some residents who believe these unfounded allegations and say that they're credible. They also say that they don't want this community, one person told me yesterday, they don't want this community to turn into a Haitian community. They say they want to keep it an American community. Of course, there are critics of that who say, well, the story of America is that communities do change. You have Germans and Polish people and Irish people, all sorts of people from other countries come here and make America their home. But the other thing I should note is that there's a lot of tension here, and that also possibly, we're not sure if it's connected, but there was a bomb threat, a number of bomb threats, and that caused the evacuation of City Hall and a number of other buildings, including an elementary school. Authorities are saying that they're working with the FBI to investigate. They're not sure who made those allegations and made that bomb threat. They also aren't sure whether it's connected to these baseless claims. That being said, Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, she talked about this issue. Take a listen to what she said.
The Springfield, Ohio Police Department has debunked this very bizarre and very hateful smear that's out there. It is spreading filth that makes the lives of the communities that are being smeared here, it puts their lives in danger. And it is just hate speech. That's what it is.
And just today, former President Donald Trump is now doubling down on those comments. Again, comments about Haitians abusing animals and saying that there's some people that are coming here from prisons. What we do know is that these Haitian immigrants are coming legally here by the thousands in the last few years, but also they're coming here, they say, to have a better life. But it's definitely a political story that is continuing. Back to you.
Michelle Cinder, thank you. And now, while former President Donald Trump might be announcing that there will be no more debates, Vice President Kamala Harris is singing a different tune.
And I believe we owe it to the voters to have another debate. Because this election and what is at stake could not be more important.
Harris there in Charlotte, North Carolina, trying to build on Tuesday's momentum. She also held a rally in Greensboro. It's part of this plan to try to flip the key battleground state, which no Democratic presidential candidate has won since Barack Obama back in 2008. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez, senior White House correspondent. He's on the trail tonight. Hey there, Gabe.
Gadi, this is Vice President Harris's second rally of the day. This one here in Greensboro. A few hours earlier, she was in Charlotte to another large crowd. Now, Democrats feel that they can win back North Carolina for the first time since Barack Obama won it in 2008. Since then, Donald Trump won back in 2016 and in 2020. President Biden had been struggling here in the Tar Heel state, but recent polls show that Vice President Kamala Harris is now leading Trump, according to one poll from Quinnipiac University. She's leading him by 3 percentage points. That is still within the margin of error. But the Harris campaign says it is entering a new, more aggressive phase of this campaign as it tries to capitalize on her debate performance from earlier in the week. A campaign official tells NBC News that the campaign raised some $47 million in the 24 hours following the debate, and that included nearly 600,000 individual donations. Now, the Harris campaign is really trying to reach out to younger voters here in North Carolina, the type of voters that President Biden had struggled with. Let's take a listen to what some voters told us during her Charlotte rally.
The whole idea that, that we're moving forward together and just hope and joy and unity, and I wanted to be a part of it.
It's her turn now. It's women's turn, and she's going to be it. And it's going to be wonderful.
As a woman, she had a really difficult line to ride there. Can't imagine her having done better.
Vice President Harris also blasting former President Trump over his decision this afternoon not to have another debate. She said in She said in her rallies that she wants the one because the American people deserve it. It's unclear what that means going forward, but as of now, there is no other debate scheduled between former President Trump and Vice President Harris. Now, the Vice President will be getting some high-powered Democratic fundraising help next week. Three sources familiar with the matter tell NBC News that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton will hold separate fundraisers next Friday in Los Angeles. Gadi?
Gabe Gutierrez, thank you so much. And coming up, turns out that John Bon Jovi isn't just a rock and roll legend. Now police in Nashville are saying he is a straight-up hero. We're going to tell you about that after the break, but first, you've got to see this. This is Francis, and he is a janitor at a Northern Virginia high school. And this week, he got the surprise of a lifetime. His students gifted him that brand new red Jeep, and his reaction was priceless. Literally falling to the floor at one moment. The students at James Madison High School asked Francis what he wanted for his birthday, and guess what he wanted? Yeah, a brand new Jeep Wrangler. Well, the boys, they got up a GoFundMe, and $20,000 later, that moment was made possible. Now Francis is riding to work in style. What an incredible guy. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back, and here are some of the stories happening out west that we're following right now. Earlier this week, we learned that the trial of Brian Kohberger, the man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students, will be moved out of the county where the killings took place because of potential juror bias. Now, today, the Idaho Supreme Court issued its decision, officially moving that trial to Ada County, home of the state capital, Boise there. That trial is set for next summer. A new hope for the resurrection of the Pac-12 conference in college sports. 4 schools, San Diego State, Boise State, Fresno State, and Colorado State are signing up, joining holdovers Washington State and Oregon State in 2026. But don't celebrate just yet. At least 2 more schools have to leave their current conference and join the Pac-12 so it can compete at the Division I level. And the Olympic flag is now in the place of the City of Angels. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass got the flag from the Paris Olympics, from the closing ceremony there, and it was installed today at City Hall, where it will stay until the highly anticipated 2028 games in Los Angeles. But just days after he was rushed from prison to the hospital for emergency heart surgery, disgraced Hollywood mogul Harvey Weinstein is slapped with a new set of charges. Now this, according to prosecutors who say he's been indicted for new sexual assault allegations in New York. The indictment is technically sealed until he appears in court next week, so we don't know the details of these new charges. But here's what his lawyer said earlier today.
Even if you don't think highly of Mr. Weinstein, as citizens of this city, this state, this country, you should be upset. You should be like, hey, this is not right. This is not how we're supposed to do things. You don't target a human being and then see, let's go talk to 100 people and maybe we can find someone who says something bad about him, bad enough that we could get an indictment.
Some big words there. So let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Angela Sinandella. Angela, thank you so much for being with us. What do we know about these charges? Is there anything we can read between the lines here? I know it's sealed, but any potential clues?
Yes, so we know from what his lawyer said to reporters outside of the hearing today that they appear to be additional sex crime allegations that stem back from 2005, 2006, and 2016. Now, currently, he is scheduled to go on trial on November 12th. Now, this is for the old charges, but prosecutors have indicated that they intend to combine both the old and these new charges into one big superseding indictment and try to charge him all together. Now, the problem with that, though, for the prosecutors is that the defense has a really good argument for more time to delay because they haven't had enough time to prepare for these new charges. So they are under seal, but they can be unsealed at any time by the prosecutor up until Mr. Weinstein is formally arraigned, meaning up until those charges are formally read to him by a judge.
And Angela, there have been so many twists and turns with all of the legal cases on both coasts as well as overseas. Can you remind us on the conviction that was overturned in April and how does it fit into all of this?
Yeah, Gadi. So look, he actually has been convicted both in California and in New York. And in California, he was sentenced to 16 years, and in New York to 23 years for third-degree rape. Now, that conviction, though, was dramatically thrown out by the New York Appellate Court just recently when they decided that it was unfair to Mr. Weinstein that additional evidence was brought in the form of witness testimony about these allegations of assault that weren't actually included in the criminal charges. So they said this is a due process violation. It was a very close decision, 4-3, but as a result, it was overturned and that conviction was thrown out. Now, what that means, though, is that the prosecutors then had the decision either to then dismiss charges entirely or to retry the case. And they have been just so intent and public that they are going to retry Mr. Weinstein. And that's where this November 12th retrial comes into play, Gadi.
And all this is happening while he's having some pretty severe health issues, it seems. What do we know about that?
So we know that he does not appear to be in Rikers right now, but he appears to be very close to us here at Bellevue Hospital, that he had emergency heart surgery recently, according to his attorney. Now, here's the thing with this trial. He doesn't need to be perfectly healthy for this trial to proceed, but he has to be with it and healthy enough to be able to defend himself, to be able to attend the trial. So really, all of this trial and all hearings are essentially paused until Mr. Weinstein recovers somewhat and is able to attend a courtroom hearing.
So much to keep track of, and we're glad you're on it for us. Angela, thank you. And in Kentucky, it is now day 6 in the search for a gunman who opened fire on 12 cars and sent 5 people to the hospital. That shooter still has not been caught. Now, here's the man that police suspect opened fire on traffic in Kentucky, then slipped away, Joseph Couch. Thankfully, none of the victims died. Still, the governor there stressed that Couch is armed and dangerous.
It's so important that the search is done professionally and carefully, because we haven't lost anyone yet from this shooter, and we want to make sure we don't lose anyone going forward.
And joining us now is NBC News correspondent Adrian Broadus. Adrian, I mean, how have they not caught this guy yet, and do they have any leads?
Well, Gadi, you got to remember, these special response teams are searching a national forest. So we're talking about thousands and thousands of acres, and at night, the special response teams can't be in that forest walking on land, so they have to depend on other technology. But Kentucky State Police, who are leading this search, are going to exhaust all resources, they say, until they find Joseph Couch, and that is dead or alive. They are dealing with additional elements. We're talking about animals, snakes in particular, sinkholes, and caves as they look for this 32-year-old. Gadi.
And Adrian, if he is in that, I mean, that video kind of paints the picture there, but if he is in that super wooded area, how do they track him in terrain like this? And is there a chance that he may have already died and that would make the search even worse?
That is the million-dollar question. There's no evidence, according to investigators, that Couch has left the area. Investigators are using technology. We're talking about drones, helicopters, dogs, and thermal imaging to search that area. But here's the deal. Helicopters can only stay in the sky for so long. Those drones can only stay in the sky for so long. Once the battery dies on the drones, they have to bring them down, recharge the battery. When the helicopters run out of fuel, they have to bring the helicopters down and refuel. Kentucky State Police have told us they have received assistance from some outside agencies, so other agencies are lending their aircraft. Now, they've had a number of leads that Joseph Couch was spotted in outside counties. They followed up on those leads. They didn't pan out. But again, Kentucky State Police are going to continue to search until they find him. Schools, a handful of them in that area, are closed, or have shifted, I should say, to online learning. For the districts that are physically open, Kentucky State Police will escort the school buses. So what does that look like? It means a patrol car will follow the school bus from the bus stop to the school to ensure safety. Gadi.
Let's go back to our top story tonight. That was that video, that shocking video of an ER nurse in New Orleans jumping into action. He jumped to save a man from rising floodwaters as Hurricane Francine ravaged Louisiana last night. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch got a chance to catch up with the hero nurse today.
With Hurricane Francine hammering New Orleans, the city told people to stay home. This is why.
That water is almost to the window of that pickup truck right there.
NBC affiliate WDSU was live on the air as this pickup truck wound up in feet-deep floodwaters, floating and spinning with a man trapped inside. Reporter Jonah Gilmore alerted police.
Officer, they have a truck right here.
My brother had texted me saying somebody had just driven into the water.
Miles Crawford lives close by. The University Medical Center nurse grabbed a hammer and walked into the water.
It looked like they're climbing out of the backseat right now. That guy just broke that window.
The man escaped with difficulty.
Oh my goodness, he just fell in the water. That Good Samaritan helping.
As the pair moved toward higher ground, the fire department arrived. Then we learned about Miles Crawford and his humility.
I'm a nurse, so got to save lives, right?
There's a real difference between someone being brought to you in a hospital and you putting your own life at risk in floodwater to save a life.
Honestly, that was easy compared to what goes on behind those doors right here. We just do the best that we can with the situation at hand. Be kind to others, and if they need any help and you're able to help them, just help them out.
Kindness, exactly what so many in Louisiana could use tonight. Jesse Kirsch, NBC News, New Orleans.
What an incredible story, Jesse. Thank you. And coming up, an attempt to remember the late Queen Elizabeth is causing a bit of a stir for looking slightly similar to a famous movie character. One clue, a drive-by fruiting? That and other headlines trending around the world are coming up after the break. Let's take a quick look around the world. UN leaders are accusing Israel of violating humanitarian law, saying 6 of its workers were among the 18 people reportedly killed by an airstrike on a school in Gaza. Now, the IDF says it was targeting Hamas militants and that several of the UN workers were members of Hamas. No evidence was given to back up that claim. Gaza's Civil Defense Agency says this was the 5th time Israeli forces have targeted that school. And U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken wrapping up a 3-nation tour today in Poland, the entire trip focusing on Ukraine. Leaders there have been asking Western allies for more weapons in their fight against Russia. The last stop was in Warsaw after Blinken spent yesterday in Kyiv with British Foreign Secretary. And Typhoon Yagi is now the strongest tropical storm to impact Asia this year. It's being blamed for more than 200 deaths in Vietnam, with more than 100 people still missing. Landslides and floods are still impacting northern parts of that country. And in Nigeria, a dam collapse has unleashed severe flooding in the northeast region, displacing 1 million people. Emergency officials say at least 30 people are dead and 15% of the capital city are underwater. The flooding also killing most of the animals at the local zoo, but there are concerns that crocodiles and deadly snakes were swept into local communities there. And over in the UK, the royal family is honoring Queen Elizabeth II this week, marking 2 years since her death at 96 years old. But in one corner of the country, an attempt to honor the late ruler is, well, art is all in the eye of the beholder, I guess, so you'll have to decide for yourself. NBC's Josh Letterman has more.
It was supposed to be a dignified tribute to the UK's longest-serving monarch.
I think it's very obvious who they are, isn't it?
But is it? The bronze statue of the late Queen Elizabeth, unveiled this week in Northern Ireland, drawing a collective, huh?
I mean, I think it could be a better resemblance, if you know what I mean.
On social media, critics not quite as polite. One viewer on X, formerly Twitter, calling it the weirdest statue ever. Another saying it is truly awful. And drawing cheeky comparisons to Robin Williams' character in the movie Mrs. Doubtfire.
God, it's hot in here.
Another user saying it should be removed and melted down, calling the piece actually offensive. The social media furor itself got so offensive, the local government switched off Facebook comments and seems to have taken down its whole post about the sculpture. Though it's defending the work in a statement, saying art can sometimes spark diverse opinions, but that people who have seen the sculpture in person seem to like it. The sculpture stands alongside an existing statue of the late Prince Philip and 2 of their corgis.
I've never really met the Queen or Prince Philip in the past, so I don't know if that's is accurate or not, but they look quite small.
The artist, Anto Brennan, didn't respond to NBC's request for comment. But sculpting celebrities can be a thankless task. Get it wrong, and the mockery just doesn't stop. Like this statue of Lucille Ball, unveiled in her hometown in 2009, locals ultimately petitioning to replace it. Or this rustic sculpture of Melania Trump, in her home country of Slovenia, torched by arsonists and replaced with the bronze version. And who can forget when this bust of Portuguese soccer star Cristiano Ronaldo went viral for the wrong reasons, ridiculed online and on Saturday Night Live.
Wow, the first question any great sculptor must ask about his subject is, what would he look like if he had a stroke?
In Elizabeth's case, the local government encouraging fans of the late Queen to come see it anyway and decide for themselves.
Thank you very much. Now, before we go, it is time for the future of everything. Some of the biggest social media platforms are teaming up to protect kids online, and hundreds of miles above Earth today, humans made more space history. We're going to tell you all about it after the break, so stay tuned. And in tonight's Future of Everything, a surprise team-up between Meta, Snap, and TikTok. And no, this is not a new app or a business. It is a program called Thrive, and it aims to prevent content featuring suicide or self-harm. And when we think about how big that problem is, consider this. Meta says between just April and June of this year, they took action on over 12 million pieces of suicide and self-harm content on Facebook and Instagram alone. Let's bring in NBC News Digital reporter Maya Eaglin with more on this announcement. Maya, thank you so much for joining us on such an important topic here. How is this Thrive platform going to work?
Hey, Gadi. Yeah, so it's a first-of-its-kind collaboration with those three big companies that you just mentioned, Snap, TikTok, and Meta. Essentially, it's serving as a sounding board. So, for example, if TikTok were to identify a harmful graphic video that violates its content guidelines, after it removes the video from TikTok, it would then notify Thrive. Thrive assigns that video a numeric code or hash and spreads that code out to Snapchat and Meta. Meta can take that code, Snapchat will take that code, identify identical or similar videos, and then hopefully remove it from their platforms as well. Gadi?
So this Thrive is not for you or me. This is kind of like a Slack, if you will, or an internal dialogue between these companies. Is that right?
Yeah, it's something that's going to happen on the back end for these companies to share information and hopefully reduce the amount of, reach that some of these really, really harmful videos have.
And all three of these social media companies have been sued by parents and been sued by communities claiming content has led to suicides. How big of a problem is this for young users?
It's a pretty big problem. I spoke with some folks at Meta today, and, they said this was too big to tackle alone. So that's why we're seeing this huge historic partnership. As you mentioned at the top, Gadi, Meta alone removed 12 million pieces of content featuring suicide and self-harm in ways that violate its guidelines from Instagram and Facebook just between the months of April and June. So unfortunately, some of these viral challenges can be deadly. Gadi?
And has there been any response from social media watchdogs?
Yes, so we spoke with Common Sense Media today. They're a technology and social media watchdog. They sent us back a statement saying, in part, this program, seemingly well-intentioned, is akin to what we've seen in the past when social media companies are feeling pressure from lawmakers and advocates to make their products safer for kids. We're glad to see the companies working together to remove the types of content associated with self-harm and suicide. Without proper regulatory guardrails, the jury is out on whether this will have a significant impact on the harms that kids and teens are facing online. So definitely seems like a step in the right direction, but we'll be monitoring to see what exact impact this Thrive platform will have on the platforms.
And Maya, finally, and very importantly, what are some of the steps that family members or friends can take if you have somebody who needs additional help right now with mental health support?
Yeah, I think letting people know that you are a resource to them goes a really long way. We know young people are online and on social media looking for community, looking for people who they can relate to or speak to. And so even if you have friends and family who you don't think are struggling, it's important to make sure that the people around you know that you're there for them. Of course, bringing in a professional, and that suicide hotline 988 is available to call or text to.
That's right.
Gadi?
Maya Eaglin, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And if you or someone you know is struggling, again, you can call 988-988-lifeline.org online. And another history-making moment, miles and miles and miles above the Earth, thanks to the private space race. That's right, we're talking about the Polaris Dawn. The crew performed the first ever spacewalk by private astronauts. There it is, right there. And NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello takes us through it.
Jared now opening Dragon Resilience into space.
It happened somewhere over Australia and New Zealand.
I have a feeling the crowd is about to go wild.
For the first time ever, a commercial astronaut, Jared Isaacman, opened the hatch to his SpaceX ship, then stepped into the blackness of space.
Back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, Earth sure looks like a perfect world.
This was the riskiest part of a 5-day mission, orbiting 3 times higher than the space station. And without an airlock, all 4 Polaris Dawn astronauts had to suit up before opening their ship to the vacuum of space.
Switching to left hand.
Though today's spacewalk, really more of a space stretch.
These are the suit mobility checks that Jared is performing.
As Isaacman and engineer Sarah Gillis tested their brand new spacesuits that astronauts might one day wear on the moon.
Stepping into test matrix 1.
Already they've climbed 870 miles above the Earth, the furthest humans have traveled since the Apollo missions, and the first time women have traveled so far, conducting research and testing new technologies, and posting Hello Earth on X using new laser light communications. NASA Chief Bill Nelson said today represents a giant leap forward for the commercial space industry. Senator and retired astronaut Mark Kelly.
This expands the ability for commercial operations, and we're moving to commercialize more of especially low Earth orbit.
And just maybe the final frontier. Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
What a view. Tom Costello, thank you. That does it for us tonight. I'm Gadi Schwartz. We'll see you here tomorrow. But until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.